It is today, and it's actually glorious because it's sunny outside. Yeah, it's chilly, but I'm down for it. The fact that there is some sun. It's been a while since we've seen that. And we got a loaded show. There is a ton to get to. A ton to get to. In baseball terms, Eddie, and you tell me if my vernacular here is correct, okay? In baseball terms, if you are the next guy at bat, you are on deck, correct?
Yes.
Now, I always understood it as you get the guy in the on-deck circle, then the guy after him is in the hole.
Yes, that is right.
Okay, so we are in the hole of the Big Ten championship game between Indiana and Ohio State, which is a big one, right?
Yep.
Obviously, this game on Saturday, it is not tomorrow, but it is in 48 hours, and it's a massive, massive game. And we've got it covered today from a couple of different angles. Rhett Lewis is going to join us just a couple of minutes from now from the Big Ten Network to preview that matchup. And then Tim May, longtime scribe, writer, Columbus Post-Dispatch. He's covered Ohio State for over 40 years. Great dude. Very active in covering IndyCar as well. But Tim going to join us in the 1 o'clock hour. There's Colts news to get to as well. Matt Taylor, voice of the Colts, joining us on today's show in the 2 o'clock hour. Obviously, the Colts getting set for what's been, as I think Kevin Bowen described it, as the recurring nightmare for the Colts, taking on Jacksonville down in Jacksonville. That's the big one there. Amp Harris going to join us 2 o'clock. He's partnering up with Reggie Wayne once again. Reggie Wayne on the cusp of the Hall of Fame, perhaps. And Amp and Reggie have a big event coming up at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway just a couple of weeks from now, and we will talk about that. Obviously, last night there were two big things that happened in the game of basketball, both of them from an Indiana standpoint on the short end. Jamal Murray went nuts.
Nuts, I think, is a underrated term.
I mean, that was, we always use the term heat check, right?
Yeah.
And that was a heat check for him because at one point he was doing the whole, blowing on his hand like my hand is that hot. And Eddie, he just kept hitting shot after shot after shot.
The most frustrating part about it, though, Jake, is that it's not like a lot of those shots were contested either. That's what's most frustrating about last night is he goes, 10 of 11 on three-pointers, and you could probably comfortably say 9 of the 11 attempts were wide open.
I think a lot of that, and yes, I saw an article today talking about the Pacers and their possibility of trade deadline stuff that said Indiana, off to a subpar start based on injuries and uninspired play. And I don't agree with that second part. I really don't. To me, they have, typically like we saw last night, they get down like 20 or 25. They come back and then they just kind of run out of gas. But I think that yesterday what you saw was the true impact of how great Jokic is. Because what do you do, Eddie? Do you double down? If you, in order to jump out and get on Murray, then you are opening things. And I get it. You'd rather have a guy shoot 2 than 3. Okay, fine. But Jokic, just in terms of the attention you have to give to him, it is so significant that I don't know what you do elsewhere. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the challenge that – and if you are Jamal Murray, you love playing with that, right? There was one play last night where Jokic got a rebound. It was one of the more – and I know that this is like par for the course for him and why he's a multiple MVP and the best player in the game and everything else. And there's nothing I can say about Jokic that hasn't been said before, just in terms of like the unlikeliest of dominant basketball players when you look at him. But he had a play last night where I don't remember who missed a shot for Indiana, but he got a rebound, and literally, I've never seen anything like this. Like he one-handed rebounded the ball, but in one motion, he let the ball fall into his hands, and then he just continued his motion into the most perfect breakaway dunk pass, 3/4 the length of the floor. I mean, it was truly like, whoa. It was impressive. I want to thank, by the way, Mick Ultra and Zinc Distributing for last night before the game. I was out at Binkley's at the corner of Kessler and College. Binkley's is awesome. And to do the Mick Ultra challenge. Ultimately, this is one of many stops that we're going to make with Mick Ultra. Come out, do the Papa Shot, get your score, record it. High score is going to go and watch the Blue and Gold up taking on the Milwaukee Bucks in Milwaukee on February 6th, and we're going to get that taken care of for you, including a hotel voucher and gift cards. But Mick Ultra goes without saying. Mick Ultra, that part of it's awesome. But Bankley's in general, and listen, I've been to Bankley's a gabillion times, but the job that Courtney's done in Bankley's in the thing that I loved about it, which makes it, again, a continued home away from home, all of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and Indy 500 photos and memorabilia and tribute that they have within Bankley's kind of reminded me of the old Union Jack and Speedway, which is no longer there. I mean, that became like just a favorite, and MCL in Speedway with the photos and the autographs and everything else. And that's what you get now at Bankley's. 2 different private rooms. One of them is kind of designed to look like just a tribute room to the Borg Warner and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But a lot of fun yesterday at Bankley's, and appreciate them having us out. All right, let's get to it. Talking about, before we get to Indiana, on the college side of things last night in Minnesota. I know people, what did I say, Eddie? I've said before, and I think I said it like a week ago. Excuse me. The way Indiana can shoot the basketball, talking about IU, they are going to win games based on that. But when you are that reliant on your outside shot, sometimes you're going to have off nights. And I think I even said, this is a team that probably could beat a Kentucky, but at the same time turn around and lose to a Minnesota. I think Minnesota is the team that I used. And last night, that's what we saw. We will get into that over the course of today. But I want to get right into the college football Big Ten championship game. Again, Indiana, Ohio State, Saturday, Lucas Oil Stadium. Joining me now on the Java House Peel and Port guest line, right off the top from the Big Ten Network, NFL Network, Rhett Lewis, talking about this one. Rhett, I said this the other day to Don Fisher, and I'm going to say the same to you. Every once in a while, would you agree, we just have to stop, take a deep breath, and say, undefeated Indiana is playing for the possibility of cementing themselves as the number 1 overall seed in the college football playoff and winning the Big Ten championship against Ohio State. It still, Rhett, does it not seem real, even though this is now year number 2 of what Curt Cignetti's done?
It's wild. It's absolutely wild, man. I was just, I've been talking about this with my friends, with my former teammates. I've got a newborn daughter now that all she knows is undefeated Indiana, which is amazing.
Right. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. It's just been unreal to think about how real it is, if that makes any sense at all. I was telling Stephen Daly, I do a thing every week for IU called Under the Hood, and Stephen Daly, who, by the way, is the most disruptive defensive lineman in the conference, not the country, leads the country in tackles for loss. He was my guest this week, and I was like, I just want you to know, bud, I won 16 games in 5 years. If you guys do what you're going to do, what we expect and hope that you do, which is win a national championship, you will have won 16 games this year. Let that sink in for a second.
It might be the most, honestly, it may be, and I'm not just saying this because I went to Indiana, as I know you did as well, obviously, and the fact that we're on in Indianapolis. This might be the most remarkable story in college football history. And I know that sounds like homerish and hyperbolic, but we're talking about the program that has lost more games than anybody in Division I heading into this year, that has now, within the form of 2 years, turned itself into the upper echelon elite power. It truly is remarkable.
No, Jake, I mean, it's I don't think that's hyperbole. I think it's true. And the more that I've, been around and listened to other people talk about it, other people are saying the same things, not just Indiana fans. It is truly remarkable. And I think it goes to show, I think it's a great lesson, for coaches like Curt Cignetti, who bet on himself and who had a plan and a belief in his plan and worked his plan. And he's got a blueprint for success. Here's the other things. He's a great evaluator. He's a great developer. And those two things are lost in this world of, hey, come here, we're going to give you the most money. Come here, you're going to get this car in this house. Whereas he has a more matter-of-fact approach where it's like, look, I am recruiting you because I believe that you can help us win at the highest level. And he's done that I mean, like, I can't even count I can't even think of like a loss in the portal, where he's brought guys in and it hasn't really worked out. Like almost every single one of them has been a contributor to this team in a big way.
Do you believe, Rhett, that let me ask you this. Curt Cignetti and his coaching style and what he has done with this team, are they winning because, if you had to pick one versus the other, is it more so because Curt Cignetti has tapped into each Indiana player in believing and understanding what they can do, or is Curt Cignetti letting his team know what the opposition is going to do, and that preparation is why they're winning?
I think it's a little bit of both, and I don't mean that as a cop-out, but I do think that one of the other pieces of Curt's success is his messaging. He reaches these players and in a way that I think is elite in college football. Now, he doesn't do it with the flash and the pizzazz of, a guy like Dan Lanning, who I respect very much, or a guy like Kirby Smart, who's going to, rile you up with volume and with all that stuff. But like, he does it very matter-of-factly. This is what it takes to win. Remember, I know how to win. All we've done here is win. You do these things, we are going to win. I just think that so many coaches talk about, hey, man, we really need a win to validate what we're saying. That's not a problem for Curt Cignetti's Indiana. He has done that, and he did it from the start. And I think that's such a huge piece of this thing, the messaging that he has. And I asked Mike Kadick about this. He was on one of the other shows I do, Big Red Carpet, with me, and we were just talking about, what Curt Cignetti's like, behind closed doors in team meetings. And he's like, look, it's simple, it's short, and it's sweet. Like, they do not have hour-long team meetings where he's, pulling up all these, like motivational things from movies and all this other stuff. I mean, like, that stuff's great and it's fine, and you do what you can to reach your team. But like, he gets in, he gets out, he says the message, and they believe it, and then they go execute it. It's that simple.
What is the biggest challenge they face? Ohio State offers challenges all over the place, right? Yeah. So I guess I'll ask it this way. I mean, we know that Ohio State defensively is the elite of the elite. I love the receiving core for Ohio State. What is a strength of Ohio State that Indiana actually may be able to counter and offset?
The run game. Their run game has gotten better. I mean, we're talking about a player in Bo Jackson who had a career high in rushing. It's a freshman player, right? Running back for Ohio State. Had a career high in rushing against Michigan, yet he didn't have a carry against Texas in week 1. So like Indiana, they get better throughout the year. That's also been a hallmark of the Curt Cignetti teams these last 2 years. They get better and they improve during the season. So many people, I think, feel like improvement stops at fall camp. Right? It doesn't. They get better as the season goes on too. So Bo Jackson is a guy that represents that to me for Ohio State, and their run game and their offensive line maybe had their best game against Michigan. Now, Indiana, the two things that Indiana's defense has been really good at is rushing the passer and stopping the run. Now, the thing where the receivers get, go crazy, Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, is when they can also run it, and you're pulling guys in to stop the run in ways that you wouldn't like to, and you're opening up those explosive plays down the field for those two alien receivers in Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith. But if you can stop the run, you have a better chance at dealing with the pass. You're not gonna shut out Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate, but you can hope to contain them by not letting them, bang their head on the goalpost and beat you over the top. And the way you do that is by stopping the run, by not committing more defenders than you're comfortable with and doing it.
Rhett Lewis, my guest from the Big Ten Network, Java House, Peel and Pour guest line. By the way, Bo Jackson, the running back for Ohio State, for those that are curious, not related to the famous Bo Jackson. His real name is Lamar Jackson, also not related to Lamar Jackson. Coincidentally, seriously. But I'm curious about this from Indiana's standpoint. Fernando Mendoza, we have seen what he has been able to do this year, in particular in responding to drives that didn't go well. But Ohio State defensively, they can get to the quarterback, but how are they in terms of secondary? I know they have good safety play. Yeah. Are there areas that Indiana can exploit?
Yeah, I think so. And I think Caleb Downs obviously is the defensive player of the year in the conference. Arvell Reese is the linebacker of the year. They had the linebacker of the year, the defensive player of the year, and the defensive lineman of the year. And Caden McDonald was a first-round pick as a defensive lineman, nose tackle. So like there's players at every level. But when you're talking about the secondary, Davison Igbinosun is their best corner. And he ended up coming back to Ohio State, I think in large part because he had some technique stuff to really iron out before he goes to the league. One of those was he has a tendency to draw a lot of flags. He gets a little handsy out there, holding flags, PI calls, that sort of stuff. He's been better at that this year, but that's still out there, right? And if, I think those back shoulder throws that Fernando and Elijah Surratt have perfected over the course of this season, I think present opportunities, not only for Indiana to work the ball down the field, but to draw penalty calls, because those are really hard on defenders. So that's one area. Another area is Omar Cooper, great example of the best in Indiana, play for Indiana, right? Get a chance to play in Indianapolis for a Big Ten championship game was just so cool for so many of the IU guys that come from Indy. But he is one of the best players in the country with the ball in his hands. The first guy in rarely gets Omar Cooper to the ground. He is like the yak god, yards after catch. And so I think getting him the ball quickly in space and some of those RPO slant routes, some of those other RPO short throws that, all right, don't like the run, let's get it out of Fernando's hand quickly. I think those are the plays where Indiana is going to find some success as well against Ohio State.
I want to get to quickly, Rhett, before we let you go, two questions about psychology, okay? I mean, you played the game, Rhett Lewis, Big Ten Network, you played at Indiana, you played the game, you've been around it, your dad was a trainer, you've been around the game a long time. Julian Sayin is a young player, obviously a phenomenal talent at quarterback for Ohio State, and probably, along with Mendoza, A and B, whichever way you want to look at it, for the Heisman. But he's a young player. Has he seen the kind of adversity this year that do we know how he would respond if Indiana is able to get to him early? I'm not saying Indiana's going to be able to do that, but if you get him uncomfortable, how do you feel that he responds, or does youth finally show itself?
I think there is some thought there for sure. Now, I think on the surface, you look at a player who's played in 12 games and started 12 games in his career, and you're like, yeah, we can affect this guy mentally. He is really sharp. He does understand and see things that defenses are doing to try to attack him. I think the one thing that helps him is that he faced some of that adversity early against Michigan. They were down. He threw a pick on the second play of the game. And they got down early, but he worked his way back and had two of the best throws of the season on touchdowns to Jeremiah Smith and to Carnell Tate. So he can work his way back from it. The thing that I'm kind of interested in, and I think, again, seeing Wink Martindale's defense probably helps him a little bit. But I don't think he's seen a defense the way that Brian Haynes, the defense coordinator at IU, will try to attack it, with the different looks, the different personnel groupings that he can send out there, the way that he can manipulate coverage at the snap of the ball, the way that he can find simulated pressures. They do that as good as anybody in the country. And the way that they can bring pressure and wreak havoc and just make him second guess what he's seeing, and then getting the pressure behind it to take advantage of the ball staying in his hand a little bit longer. That's the part I'm more concerned with. I think this dude's a high-level competitor, so I'm not necessarily worried in the stage being big for him, in the moment being big for him, in some of that that kind of thing, and some of that adversity, but actually in the landscape of trying to deal with Indiana's defense is where I'm curious to see how he performs.
Okay, lastly, Rhett, this game in reality, and I know what it means for fans, I know certainly what it means for Indiana symbolically, but the reality is it is a championship game for the conference. I get it. But it is still kind of Christmas Eve, because for both of these teams, there is the bigger prize down the road, right, in terms of the college football playoff. The psychology of it, whether one of these two teams is blown out, whether one went, whatever it may be, is it difficult, good or bad, as a college football player and a young player to then put the result or the things that happen in this game aside to be able to then turn around into a new tournament that awaits you beyond it?
Yeah, I do think that Indiana is going to be fine regardless of outcome. I think both teams, whoever wins and whoever loses, I think both teams still get the bye, and I think they've earned it. And it would be crazy to me if either one of these teams with a loss in the championship game falls out of the top four. That would be crazy. But I think Indiana is equipped to deal with whatever the outcome is and to compartmentalize it, to dismiss it, and then to move on. And I think that's kind of just been their mantra, all year long, right? Like they've done it, after the Oregon game, they figured out a way to do it, right? Coming off the win against Penn State, they figured out how to do it. Like those big emotional wins, like they have been on the roller coaster this year. But they've kind of just been navigating it with just like an even keel mentality and just kind of a low blood pressure mentality. So like I think they're going to be fine regardless. I think the thing that'll go crazy is the exterior, the external perception of Indiana. They lose by 10 points. It's like, oh, they never should have belonged here. They don't belong. They don't belong in the play. They don't belong in the bye. Like,
right?
That's BS. Yeah. So like I think they don't care about that stuff, honestly. I mean, you and I can talk about it, until we're blue in the face, of course.
Rhett, I appreciate the time as always. I know it's a busy time. It truly is. And I know, listen, I get it. There's got to be an objectivity there as well. But at the same time, as somebody that wore that uniform, I know there's got to be an element of pride and excitement as well. I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, you got it, man. Thanks for having me, Jake. Anytime, bud.
Appreciate it. Rhett Lewis joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. And that's the thing that, either way, I mean, if Indiana wins, then you say to yourself, like, okay, but you got to make sure that, and Cignetti does, certainly it appears as though he's as good as anybody at then bringing it back. The Oregon game, as he just mentioned. You beat Oregon, and then I think it was the Iowa game right after that, or I can't remember which game it was right after that, but they did not slip up, right? Was it? It
was Iowa.
Iowa, yeah.
Yeah.
And they're down, and you're thinking like, oh gosh, and then boom, they find a way to win in that game. They refocus, they rechanneled their focus.
Which one's the bigger Heisman moment?
What's that?
Which game's the bigger Heisman moment? That Iowa drive or the Penn State drive?
State.
It's got to be the Penn State drive,
Penn
right?
State, because that was also on national television. You know what I mean? Like over that was on every game's on national television. I get that, but that was big time network television.
Yeah, not Peacock.
And you have Guest Johnson making that call of, give him the Heisman, et cetera. But good question for sure. But the other aspect is if they were to, and I'm not saying that's going to be the case, if they were to, Indiana get blown out in this game, and Ohio State, you heard Graham Rahal mentioning yesterday, Ohio State has that ability in that Penn State game, 21 points in 5 minutes, just boom, turn it up into a fourth gear. If it gets away from Indiana, and I'm not saying that's going to happen, don't misquote me, but if it does that psychologically knock them back now into a, gosh, maybe the hype is right? Do you have a PTSD over the Notre Dame game or Ohio State from a year ago? I don't think so. But you still have to then turn around and get set for the college football playoff, which is right there. I mentioned last night, IU did not shoot the ball well in Minnesota. Minnesota's always been a tough place to play, but it does take a wind a little bit out of the sails of what, and I think people are still super hyped about the two-step on Saturday because you have the Big Ten championship game and then you've got Indiana-Louisville beforehand. But it would have meant a little more, admittedly, if Indiana was still unbeaten, but nonetheless, they fall last night, and this is what happens when you have teams that are so dynamic in terms of quick barrage shooting, and we've talked about Indiana's offense, their ability to come down, get a quick three. If it's not there, then immediately back up and move the ball around with very good spacing and ball movement. But when you are reliant on outside shooting primarily as part of your offense, you're just going to have nights where it becomes contagious where the ball doesn't drop. And we saw it last night. Tucker DeVries did not shoot the ball well. Wilkerson did not shoot the ball well. When you force Minnesota into 16 turnovers and you get 22 points off turnovers and you still lose, that shows that offensively in your sets you were not efficient. And that's exactly what happened last night. I think this Indiana team is going to be fine, But there are going to be and that's not going to be the first one. There's going to be another one where we talk about it and we're like, man, what happened last night in Rutgers or whatever it might be, because that's the reality of that style of play and reliance on it. On the other hand, from the Pacers last night, I looked up at one point. I'm like, they're down 24. It got away quickly. And that might tell us as much about Denver as it does Indiana. But usually you say 25 games to give yourself an idea who a team is and where a team's going. I think we now have a pretty good idea what this year is going to look like overall in totality for Indiana, so meaning the Pacers. So where do they go from there? Tony East, other side, talking about exactly that. Thanks to Rhett Lewis for joining us on the program, talking Indiana and Ohio State. Before we get to Tony East, Eddie, if you could please, the breaking news sounder. This just in, I'm actually reading this from our friends at WTHR. The Marian University Knights are ending their season just 2 days before a playoff game against Kaiser University on Thursday, December 4th. That would be today. The university said an academically ineligible student-athlete had played in 3 games for the team. The NAIA withdrew the program from the football championship series over the discovery. Quote, "We sincerely apologize to Kaiser University, the NAIA, our student-athletes, and the Marian community that we cannot continue our season," said Steve Downing, Marion's director of athletics, of course, the former Indiana basketball star. "This is a disappointing outcome for everyone involved. We regret the disruption it causes and are taking immediate steps to address the root causes," end quote. So Marion, who had won, and, of course, Coach Karras joined us to preview that game last week in their college football playoff, now terminating their season, and their quest for a national championship will not continue. All right, joining us now to talk about what happened last night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, Tony East on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Tony, I'm going to begin with this. As opposed to getting into the nuances of, Jamal Murray, like just hit another 3, that kind of thing. When do you believe it, or do you have an idea where we are in terms of the Pacers and just kind of determining the direction of the season in terms of personnel, pursuit of trying to get things righted versus just accepting the reality of long term? Like, do you think we're there? Do you think they are now at the point where they're like, look, it's a wash?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're 4-18, right? Like, the Pelicans in 2021-22 started 3-16. They made the play-in and then made the playoffs through the play-in. The 1984-85 Cavs started 2-19, and they made the playoffs. So that's about all the examples I could find of teams starting this bad and making it. That's 2 in what I can't do math. 4 years.
The reality is Tony, and I don't mean to cut you off there, but because that's my point, is it is very easy to look at it and say, well, you got no Obi Toppin, you got no Aaron Nesmith, you've got you obviously don't have Halliburton, etc. Do you believe that they are still looking at, okay, once we get everybody back, here's where we are, or is this now already at the point of let's play out the schedule and then next year we regroup and we have a chance to find out who and what we are?
Yeah, next year you don't want to be doing any finding out, right? You'd like to be
right.
Hit the ground running right away, right? That's what I think will be interesting about. I'll make this up, but maybe the next 6 weeks, right, till January 15th, when everybody can be traded. Like, if you're the Pacers, you have to toggle all of what you're talking about, which is finding out stuff and keeping track of your record and development and all that. But what are you actually learning without some of these guys? They won a couple games last week, and they won that Hornets game, and Jay Huff was really good, and they found this lineup with McConnell and Huff around Siakam and Matherin and Nembhard, and that's great. And then I see a lot of comments that are like, "Ugh, they won," and I get that. I get why people want them to lose. Like, I'm not saying that they're dumb or anything, but it's like that should be the point of this season, is finding lineups like that, right? That do work, and next year when you're trying to win, okay, even when Halliburton's not in the game, we can turn to that combo of 5. Or, oh, look, like last night, Ben Shepherd with some spry drives and good defense. Okay, what happened in that game? And what did we learn about how we can make that happen more often? Hey, maybe Garrison Matthews is a dude on his second 10-day instead of his first one. So it's interesting because learning all that stuff I just said is easier or more valuable information if they're doing it next to the other good players, right? If you learn how to use Shepherd alongside Siakam, that's very important for next season. But that does come at it like you're playing Siakam a lot, and they shouldn't be. That's his long-term future. So all that to say, for the next 4-6 weeks, I think that they should continue to just keep doing what they've been doing, if that makes any sense. Because people keep saying, they got to start tanking. They have 4 wins. What, you want them to have negative wins? They're not doing anything well at the moment in terms of winning games. But I do think they need to learn what works, and to do that, you kind of keep going with what you have. As you get healthier, you learn some stuff. Maybe you'll never have Toppin with your top guys this season because his return will be really close to the trade deadline. But, outside of that, I think at some point you have to make a clear goal change shift. But their record is so poor at the moment, it's not even really costing them to keep doing what they're doing and trying to learn because they're still so close to the bottom of the standings.
Tony, I came up with a phrase the other day. I'm very proud of this. Okay, and you can use it. It's fine. This is not like Why Not Indiana, which I trademarked. You can use this phrase. So I have nicknames for two kinds of players, and I think you've heard the first one before. I've said it 10,000 times on the radio. A 2025 guy. You've heard me mention a 2025 guy, right? Do you know what that is?
Yes. Yes.
Guys, 20 points per game on 25 win teams. The newest that I've come up with, and it's applicable this year, are empty calorie guys. Now, empty calorie guys, let me explain, are guys like when you're on the road, you're on a road trip, and you're starving, so you stop in a convenience store and you just get like 3 bags of chips and a beef jerky. Those are empty calories. You got to eat something, but the calories are offering you no long-term nutrition. Empty calorie guys are guys that are going out there and they're eating up minutes and they're filling a roster spot for you and they're getting you points, but they really don't have any benefit towards your long-term vision. Okay?
Yep.
Give me 2 guys right now, and maybe the Pacers are figuring out and evaluating who through this process and through 10-day contracts and 1-year deals and whatever else, they're figuring out, okay, who can we keep here that becomes a 13th man for us, and who are empty calorie guys that are just eating up minutes. Where do you draw the line in terms of the guys that we've seen and the feel that you get as to which side each is on?
Yeah, that's the goal of that's what you're trying to figure out, right? And this will sound hilarious to say because it's December 4th, but that's why I asked Rick Carlisle last night about Garrison Matthews and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. I'm not even necessarily certain either of them are in the short-term or long-term plans of the Pacers, but Jeremiah Robinson Earl is 25 and started games for them this year. They clearly think something of him, and Garrison Matthews these last 2 games has been this guy can make everything sometimes, but he's 29. Is he what you're describing? Is he just a guy who's on this team and is scoring points and they don't win at all and it doesn't matter? Or is he actually somebody that when they're good, they'd run around, right? And so it sounds like such micro decisions, but to them it matters. And we can call them a 13th man or whatever, but Ben Shepherd's not playing well this year, although he's had a good last 5 or so games. He was in their playoff rotation last year. That's what makes this such a hard evaluation for all these guys is it's the worst possible way to evaluate them with how many guys are out and how different their roles are from typical seasons where we've seen it twice, 2 playoffs that Ben Shepherd has made 38% of his threes and defended guards and been a 15 to 12 minute a game guy on a good winning playoff team. But on this team, when he's asked to do a lot more, he probably looks a little bit more like an empty calories guy who's turning it over much more than he has in the past, and his 3-ball hasn't fallen really at all this year. So it's for him, it's probably super frustrating. And if you're a fan, you're thinking, why is this guy playing? Well, it's because he's way better when the team is better, right? He just the things he provides naturally fit better on a good team, which is why it's hard to know what is the line of demarcation for empty calories and why they're so, focused on development and making guys get better at lots of skills this season if they can, because they need to figure that out in any way that they actually can, which is, again, why I think that they should keep trying to play their better players for at least some more amount of time, real minutes, and try to push for something serious. But, the swath of guys who, everybody knows who is real on this team. If you were in the playoff rotation last year, yeah, got it. But, this Walker, Furphy, Robinson, Earl, Matthews, quartet, plus their centers. Jay Huff's been good of late, although he struggled last night. Isaiah Jackson had a nightmarish matchup. All those guys have shown something for the Pacers before, and except for Huff. And in most cases for some of those guys in the postseason, what they are kind of all jockeying, I think, to be the guys 8 through 12 on the next Pacers team, and so they're kind of the guys to keep an eye on when it comes to that. Are they scoring a lot right now and showing you something more because the Pacers are bad, or are they doing something more because they're actually showing improvement that could land them a key role on the next team that we've seen in Jackson's case and Shepard's case, a little bit in Walker's case in the past. Matthews has played on some playoff teams, right, that they can do, or is this just a reality of the situation? It's really hard to find what that answer is on this team because everybody's role is so different than what it was or is when this team is supposed to be good.
Tony, the guy that to me has been enigmatic, because I feel like you are still trying to, and I mean you, Tony, I'm saying we in populace, we're trying to figure out if Jarris Walker can either be benefit to Indiana in terms of bringing something on the floor or be benefit to Indiana because he's intriguing enough that somebody will trade for him. And I feel like he has yet to break through and cement either. Where do you see him in terms of what his value is or will be?
Yeah, what's I don't remember what movie or the thing is from, but what's the just when you think you're out, they pull me back in, right? Whatever that's from. Like, he was awesome a couple weeks ago. He had that amazing game against Detroit, followed it up with a good shooting game, has had some really nice rebounding games of late. Last night it felt quiet. I walked away like, I didn't really feel like I felt Jarris Walker's impact as much. Need 11 points and 3 boards in 21 minutes and made 4 of his 7 shots. Like, that's a good night, right? That's a quality performance from a young player. It's not like, oh my gosh, this guy's going to be awesome. But he also had some real stinkers, right? No doubt. Over 10, 2 for 9, 1 for 8. That was 3 games in a row for him to end that road trip where the Pacers were just awful, right? So it's really been, and this is true of a lot of young players, he's just been really inconsistent, and that is the hopeful next step for the Pacers in determining, what his role could be for them if he is playing for them when they're, trying to win next year, is like, how can they get him to be more consistent? Because this happened last year too. I did a story on him in late December of last season, and he even talked about this season has been up and down for me. And I've referenced that a million times because he said it, and he knew he was being inconsistent. I think he felt that way about this season too. And then from, mid-January onward, his role was a little different and smaller, but he was playing every night and playing largely pretty well. And then he was playing in the playoffs until he got hurt in Game 6 against the Knicks. So they do have like a 3.5 month sample of him playing consistent basketball for them last year. But this year, when he's been asked to do more, it's been like, it's not even been a good game and a bad game. It's been an awesome game and just like a atrocious, awful, holy cow, what's going on kind of game. And that's scary. That's really hard to evaluate. You have no idea what the floor or ceiling of that kind of player is. It's hard to make decisions based on what they could be in a more stable role when they can't get a stable role for good reason due to injury on your current team. So I think they're still figuring out with him, but I certainly thought he might look a little better this season in general, or on balance, that he might at least show, 3 out of 5 games or 4 out of 5 games where you go, nice, okay, he looks a little more forceful or, focused, or his passing looks sharper or whatever. And he still has 1 turnover a game where he just throws an atrocious pass, even though he made a good read. So he's got a lot to clean up, even though he clearly has a solid base of skills. And that's for them to figure out by February, right? Because, who knows what his value will be if he goes into year 4 and doesn't show a ton of pop besides just like a bench level wing who's on a somewhat sizable salary on his rookie deal. He obviously has a lot of potential, right? He can kind of shoot. He's got a huge defensive size, but he has yet to kind of put it all together for like 10, 15 games in a row. And so it's really hard to pin down what his actual value would even be.
So Jarris Walker is Michael Corleone from The Godfather. That's what we figured out in this, right, Tony?
Should I have just said that instead of talking for 2.5 minutes?
No, it's great. No, I'm saying it's great. Tony East at Tony R East, by the way, on the X Post Twitter. Finally, Tony, did you? And I don't know if you went. Did you get a? I was surprised. Like I'm leaving the game the other night. I can't remember which game it was, and I turn around and I'm like, is that Oladipo sitting there, like behind, like wearing a hoodie, like completely incognito? And I realized I knew that he was in town for the Herd in the G League game against the Boom. Did you happen to see him play?
I did not get to go. I had 4 straight days of hosting family for Thanksgiving, which was lovely, but made it impossible to leave to go watch Taylor Peter and Victor Oladipo play in the Boom game.
You've got 4 straight days of family? That's impressive.
We hosted people, so and they all were from out of state. And then the last day, 2 others who weren't here originally were passing through from somewhere else, so we were in charge of things. And an update for you personally, we got another new kitten, and we're dog sitting for my wife's parents right now. So our house
outstanding.
Was just
the new kitten's name would be
Manny. His name is Manny.
So we have Winston and Manny.
Winston and Manny, yes. But anyway, because of all that happened at the same time, so we had 6 people here and 2 extra pets. A month ago, none of them were here. So
has Winston been welcoming?
No, he is not.
Okay.
No, he is not.
So some things to work out what you're getting at. You're still trying to figure out who are the empty calorie kittens and who's going to be. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I want them to be empty calorie kittens for like 2 freaking seconds, but that has not happened at all yet. So I'm doing my best.
Tony, we appreciate the time as always. Tony East joining us, Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Appreciate it, man.
Yes, I'm very stressed about the Hoosier week, so glad I got to not think about that for a couple of minutes. Thanks for having me.
Telling you what, it is stressful. And I do feel, listen, there is a group of folks that I owe an apology towards. It's not often that I sit here before you on these radio airwaves and I have that kind of humility of saying, I owe you an apology. But there are those of you listening that fall into that category, and I will do that sort of a mea culpa next. We have Big Ten Fan Fest tickets to give away. This gets underway tomorrow out at the Indiana Convention Center. This is all part of the celebration of the Big Ten football championship game, and it's not necessarily centric to, if that's the right word, Indiana and Ohio State. It really is a celebration of the Big Ten in general, the history of the Big Ten, the schools of the Big Ten, the football of the Big Ten, the trophies that have been won in the Big Ten, the Heismans, all of it. Really is a super cool event. It's a great way to soak in everything that is going with the fact that the Big Ten championship game is here in Indianapolis, and we will give those tickets away in just a second. Before we do so, I will say this simply as my apology, if you will. I would be, and I understand it, and I'm going to apologize for it. Purdue is a victim of their own success to an extent. And I mean that as the ultimate compliment to Purdue basketball. Purdue basketball and what they are doing and what they have done for the last handful of years is truly remarkable, especially in today's era and climate of college basketball. To have a team that has conference or national player of the year candidates that have been there for multiple years and are coming back and buying in and all in on the team aspect of accomplishment and accolade and not worried about the individual stuff and not chasing the bigger money elsewhere and not going for bigger roles and getting guys that understand where they are and who they are and what Matt Painter wants out of that is something that everybody that's a fan of college basketball nationwide should be rewarding, talking about, celebrating on the regular basis, and tipping their cap towards, because it represents everything in all areas that you would want for young people, for a business, whatever it might be. The model of the way Purdue basketball does it is truly admirable. And they are so good. They play so well. They are so cohesive, and they are so admirable that we should be talking about it all the time. But we have become accustomed to it. We are almost spoiled by the consistency and the consistent greatness that Purdue is putting out, that it's just like background noise of like, oh, yeah, and by the way, Purdue happens to be ranked number 1. Oh, yeah, by the way, Braden Smith happens to be a front runner for College Player of the Year. Oh, yeah, by the way, Trey Kaufman-Wren continues to play at a high level, especially now that like Oscar Clough is there rebounding everything, or Jacobson's getting a block shot, or whatever it might be. Oh, yeah, Fletcher Lawyer just hit another 3. Oh, yeah, Harris is coming off the bench and hitting 3s for them. I mean, we should be talking about that with much more consistency, except for that because they are so good and have done this now for a while and just continue to reload the same principles that allow them to stay at the same level of play, it's almost like we've just become spoiled by it, of it being expected. So it's almost redundant to talk about it. But I do feel for fans of Purdue, because here they are with the best team in college basketball and everything I just talked about, and yet, locally speaking, most sports conversation is centered around Curt Cignetti and what that football team for Indiana is doing, and then parlayed in with the fact that Indiana has a new basketball coach that we're still trying to figure out what that style is going to be, and therefore IU is dominating the conversation when Purdue is the one dominating the results. And I understand and respect, as a Purdue fan, why that would get old. Eddie, we are going to give away the Big Ten Fan Fest tickets. We have how many to give away, and we're doing it in what method?
So we have 3 4-packs to give away, and I've got another trivia question for you, Jake.
Okay.
So last year, the Oregon Ducks defeated Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. They were the first team that was not Ohio State or Michigan to win the Big Ten championship since 2016. Name the team that won the Big Ten championship in 2016.
Okay. The 2016 Big Ten title winner. This is the last non-Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon winner of the Big Ten title game, right?
Yes.
All right. And they're going to do that via phone or text.
317-239-1070 is the text line number.
Text your guess. Text it to Eddie, and if you are correct, you're on your way. Eddie, I'm curious because I can tell when you're trying to curry favor that there are a couple of songs that you always play because you know that they are amongst my favorite. I'd like to know what the others are, but before we get to that, do we have a correct answer?
Yes, we had plenty of correct and incorrect.
What was
answers.
the most common incorrect guess?
Wisconsin.
I would think Wisconsin or Michigan State would be the answer that most people would immediately think first. But the last non-Ohio State, Michigan, or Oregon Big Ten championship game winner was?
The Penn State Nittany Lions.
And that means who is on their way?
So our buddy Dennis Michaelis, David Stevens, and then one that needs to reply so that I can figure out who their name is.
Or
what their name is.
Okay. So how about this? What are the first two numbers of their phone number?
I'm not going to do that.
No, it's not going to give away their phone. What's the first two numbers of the phone number?
3-1.
Okay. Not the area code, the phone number itself?
3-1.
Okay. If your phone number, if you're the one that called in or texted in with Penn State as 3-1, then you need to let Eddie know who you are. Okay, what songs do you most frequently play that you know are my favorite and that I will immediately say, I love this song?
The Verve?
Yep. There are three that come to mind. Dexy's Midnight Runners, Come On Eileen is one. The Verve Bittersweet Symphony is two, and there's a third. Every time you play it, I make mention of it.
Anything Oasis?
Well, yes, that goes without saying. But the third would be Melt With You by Modern English.
Yeah.
Every time you play that, I make mention of it.
Or Laying Down Under?
That's a great song. I always say that that's my favorite song of all time. The Colts are back on the practice field, and Kevin Bowen is, of course, our guy on the scene over there reporting the following that appear to be practicing today. Now, we have seen in the past, there is precedent, the word I always use, of players that will practice on Thursday or be out on Thursday, and then the opposite happens on game day. Or a guy practices and you go, oh, he's good to go, and then suddenly he shows up on the injury report as out. That has happened. Or vice versa, a guy that returns to the practice field and you're like, okay, good, everything looks good to go, and then they are out on game, whichever way, the opposite of what I just said. Here are those that are on, it appears, the field to practice today for the Colts. Kenny Moore, who has been dinged up with an ankle injury. He is out there going. Tyquan Lewis, also an ankle, and Josh Downs. Downs has he has been monitored for hip and knee injuries. And Josh Downs is continuing to be an increasingly important part of their offense, notably because, and I think when you look at the game against Houston, one of the underrated aspects of what didn't take place, or one of the things that's easy to overlook that you kind of forget about. We knew going into that game of the injury to Daniel Jones, and there was so much immediate scrutiny of, okay, how's he going to look? How mobile is he going to be? How is he going to be able to move if the pocket breaks down, etc.? And the answer to all of those things were not very good. I mean, he, at no fault of Daniel Jones, or no knock on Daniel Jones, I guess I should say, when Ralph Reef came on with us on Monday, I thought he did an outstanding job of explaining, and I am not a doctor. I'm not a trainer. My only knowledge of anything medical comes from things that I've undergone personally. And that does not involve anything really with my legs. By the way, when it comes to things medically, reminder, Sunday, noon until 2, we will be at Gugman House Brewing over on the near west side off the 16th Street with Franciscan Health and our Movember celebration of Men's Health Fair. All of your questions, screenings, whether it be your blood pressure, your blood sugar, all of that, doctors, people on staff from Franciscan to answer questions for Men's Health. Obviously, the women, welcome to come as well. Just a health fair in general, and a chance to watch a little of the Colts game, enjoy just the fellowship, the company of everybody, noon until 2, coming up on Sunday. But what Ralph Reef explained when it comes to Daniel Jones' leg was the following. The tibia is the shin bone, That's the big one. You play soccer, you wear shin guards, guess what? They're protecting your tibia. The way he explained it, and I thought, Ralph, it was outstanding the way he explained it this way. The fibula is like the sidecar that attaches onto it. It's like if your shin is the motorcycle, then the little sidecar is the fibula. It is a side bone. And the way Ralph was explaining it was you can get a small fracture, a chip in that fibula, and while it will not increase in likelihood of further damage to the bone itself, it can create a friction or, an offset of some of the ligaments and tendons around it that are very, very painful. And as he was explaining it, while Ralph doesn't specifically work on Daniel Jones, as somebody who has been around athletic training for 40 years, Ralph, knows and has an understanding of the symptoms and things like that with a player of a certain injury. And he was saying that Daniel Jones planting his foot or turning his foot or having to push off his foot and his lower leg, while there is likely not the possibility that anything is going to become a more severe injury for him, it doesn't mean that you don't naturally have an inability to 100% exert, because your body naturally, from that pain, holds itself up and you just don't get total range of motion. So if Daniel Jones, if that's the case, and I thought in the Houston game we immediately saw it, that there were plays that were breaking down, and for me it was right out of on the very first drive I saw it. A play that was breaking down where the Daniel Jones that has played the level that he was playing when they got out to a 7-1 start, and the Daniel Jones that was being discussed as, wow, like, is this guy playing at an MVP level? And he is answering every single request that Shane Steichen is making of him, of understanding reads and going through his progressions and feeling comfortable in the pocket, because he knows that if all hell breaks loose, he can use his wheels to get out and to get around the edge and to pick up 6, 7, 8 yards. All of those things were taken away. You could tell immediately where he knew, okay, I don't have that option. When the heat's coming on me, I got to get out of the house immediately, because I don't have any way to extend plays and even go through all of my reads, because I've got to make a quick decision to get out of this. And you could see that. One of the underappreciated aspects of that, and I think overlooked, going into that game against Houston, what we knew was that Tyler Warren was dealing with an illness, missed some practice time, but was not 100%. And I know he was out there playing, and I don't know what his illness was. I assume he had like a flu-like symptoms or whatever else. But you naturally, when you're not feeling up, you can imagine. When you get that, and this time of year you certainly get it a lot, but when you get that cold or that achy feeling where just everything you touch, your body feels freezing, and you just feel like you're made of porcelain, and like everything you touch, you're just it reverberates through your entire body. So imagine feeling that way even on a Thursday, and then going out Sunday and playing in a not contact but collision sport. And Tyler Warren, I know, ironically enough, on the 4th and 1 where they tried to do the direct snap to Tyler Warren, they were doing that because they knew that Jones's mobility was compromised. But Warren, I think, was also compromised, and so he wasn't able necessarily to just get in those situations where he is your bailout guy. And for Daniel Jones, if he doesn't have time to go through all of his reads now, if he knows that when the heat's coming and the pockets collapsing around him, that he doesn't have the tuck and go ability, then he needs to know that there is somebody there where he can immediately get out of a play and just find somebody that is floating open out there to bail him out. And that guy is Josh Downs. Josh Downs is he's an important part of their offense in general, but he's even more important now Without Ashton Doolin, without A.D. Mitchell, you are shrinking the level of options that are out there in general, but he is your bailout emergency guy. You know, Eddie, do you remember the term that I used, the copier guy? You know what a copier guy is? This is another Queryism.
Yeah.
Give me a line, an industry, a company, a business. You know, off the top of your head, a company that does what?
A company that does, I don't know, printing.
Okay, a printing company. Okay? So if you're a printing company, you are Garrison Printing Company, and you got 55 employees. Every company, including Garrison Printing, needs a copier guy. Well, Jake, what is a copier guy? Best way to explain it, every company has that one guy or gal in the building that when there are 3 people sitting around the copier because it's on the blink, it's frozen up, nobody can figure out why. We just added toner. Does this thing have paper? Why is it beeping at me? There's always that guy in the building that you go, you know what? Has anybody seen Frank? Where's Frank? Frank knows how to fix that stuff. This building's copier guy is Scotty Johnston. He just knows he knows where everybody's buried. He knows where everything is. He knows how to replace everything. He knows how to fix everything. Anything goes wrong, that's the guy you call. You just know he's going to know how to fix it. Josh Downs, to an extent, is that guy right now for the Colts offense. He's the guy that you just know is going to bail you out. Now, the player that I think the Colts need to kind of get going here a little bit, Eddie, I'll ask you, which player on the Colts offense right now is the one that it has not been injury, just for whatever reason, it seems like you say to yourself, although I say this, did make a big play recently, but also was part of what should have been a bigger play, wasn't necessarily his fault, what didn't deliver. But a guy that going into the year you thought was going to be a much more consistent big stat guy than he's been. Anybody jump out at you?
I would still go with Josh Downs.
Really?
In this category, yes. I mean, if you look at the last 2 weeks specifically, he's got 4 of the 12 targets. He had 2 drops against Houston. There was a ball that he should have caught against Kansas City, but he didn't get his head around in time to catch it.
And he had one drive in that game though, where he was the entire drive, right?
Yeah, his 2 catches were on that one drive, and then he had another catch that got called back because of the holding, and then the very next play was the Alec Pierce pass interference penalty that he drew that resulted in the first down. But it just doesn't feel like Josh Downs has been as impactful. He's got 370 yards this year on 40 catches and 3 touchdowns. Just doesn't feel like he's been a consistent figure in their offense.
I'll go with Michael Pittman Jr.
Really?
Look, he's a great player, but Alec Pierce is now, I think we can safely, Kevin just had an article about this, and I agree with Kevin on this. Alec Pierce has now ascended as the Colts' kind of number 1 wide receiver.
Oh, without question, yeah.
Because he is, and Pittman Jr., I mean, I love him because he has been the definition of, tough over the middle, playing hurt, answering the bell. I mean, he's a guy that is, no doubt about it. I think last year in particular, he was playing hurt last year, and with the back, and you could see it. But he fought through it, and you look back now and you go, okay. I mean, it really is impressive what he was able to do, considering I think he was really banged up. But, and I'm not saying he's a bad player this year at all, but I think that we anticipated, okay, now a healthy Michael Pittman means he is their number 1 guy, and I think Pierce has, and maybe that says more about Pierce than it does Pittman. But it feels like Pittman, I'm look at his game, look up his game log.
Yep, looking at it right now.
Okay. Give me what's the highest number of receptions he's had in a game?
This year, 9.
That's solid.
9 for 115.
I mean, huge, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, outside of that, give me the rest of his games.
That was against Pittsburgh. He had 8 for 95 and a touchdown against Tennessee. He had 7 for 58 and a touchdown against the Chargers. Miami week 1, 6 for 80 and a touchdown, 6 for 73 and a touchdown against Tennessee. In another game, 5 for 41 and a touchdown against the Rams, 5 for 39 and a touchdown against Vegas.
And that's, I mean, when you read it off that way, you go, okay, that's pretty solid, right? I think going into the year, I thought of him more as the consistent 8 to 9 to 10 catches per game guy. And that's been his ceiling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are Pierce's numbers? What is Pierce's high game in terms of receptions? I know he has surpassed him in yardage, but what about and you get more chunk plays out of Pierce? I get it.
In that same game against Pittsburgh, Pierce had a big game as well. 6 for 115, no touchdown. But I mean, if you look at just the consistency of Pierce, 4 for 68, 4 for 67. Arizona 2 for 48, and then you have the Chargers 5 for 98. Atlanta 4 for 84 and a score.
See, you get more big play out of Pierce, right?
Yeah, and then Houston 4 for 78 and a touchdown.
So I guess Pittman is doing what it is that you would expect, though, in the fact that he is more. But
I will agree with you that the last couple of weeks there just doesn't seem to be the level of separation.
Now, I think
for Pittman, and we've seen that historically in his career, though, Jake, is that the Colts, the passing game has struggled the last couple of years because of the fact that they haven't had a lot of guys that get open with, their release off the line of scrimmage. A lot of it is scheme and getting the ball out quickly. And notably with Pittman, there's just not a lot of room lately. He's getting hit as he's trying to make the catch, or he's just simply not open.
I think a lot of it is what you just said there at the end. He's simply not open. I think some of it is now you are getting a shorter amount of time for guys to get open because you don't have the extension of play clock like you had before because of the injury. And the other unfortunate thing that comes into play with all of that is, and I know that I'm apparently alone on this island. We talked to Chap about it. I mean, we talked to several about this. But I still I can't help but wonder. Maybe we're not there yet, but, and I'm not talking about in game totality. I'm talking about in limited spots or bursts. But if there are times where it is very clear that teams are aggressively getting at Daniel Jones and his mobility is not there, are those moments or are there periods where a healthy Anthony Richardson would have been utilized at times to offset that? I'm not saying quarterback by committee by any stretch, but would we have seen him? The 4th and 1 is a prime example. Are there times where Richardson would have found his way back onto the field and been utilized in spot situations? I personally think that's something that would have been explored. Now, I know that those that we talked about said, no, it's pretty clear that's they've moved on from that. And I do think they've moved on from him, but it still feels like if he was healthy, and you feel bad for Anthony Richardson because that injury, it appears is, in fact, a serious injury that still there doesn't appear to be any sort of a clear timeline on return. But if that had never happened, and I realize it did, so it's kind of a moot point, but I am still, it leaves me wondering the what-if question in a continued long list of what-ifs when it comes to Anthony Richardson. I also am curious about this, by the way, and this is what makes me weird, I realize.
Okay.
We now have to call him Anthony Richardson Sr., right?
Yes.
Which I guess I get, except for that the junior, it's not like he's playing and you need to differentiate, right? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
I don't know. Like, Jake, if you were Jake Query Sr., wouldn't you want to be known as Jake Query Sr.?
But I think of it as...
I guess you are senior anyway.
That's right. The gray hair shows it. What I'm getting at is, I guess, how many players are out there? I would imagine there are a lot of players in the NFL who have a child that has the same name, right?
Well, Rodney Thomas is Rodney Thomas II.
Do you know the difference between the second and junior?
So this is a very fascinating thing, but explain it, yeah.
I believe I'm correct in this. Typically, when you hear the second versus junior, junior is in direct lineage, and the second means that you are named after someone within the family of the same name, but it is not necessarily a direct offspring, correct? So in other words, if you have a son,
Yep,
and you name the son
after my uncle.
correct, then that would be the second.
Now,
Or after your dad. So
yeah.
let's say
Yeah.
let's say your dad's name's Tom.
It is.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay. So Tom Garrison. So if you have a son and you're like, I'm going to name him after my dad, then it's Tom Garrison the second, but it's not Junior because he is not directly underneath your dad.
Which brings me to this question. Why is Wardell Stephen Curry the second?
Because there is a Wardell, that would mean
His father is Wardell Stephen Curry.
His father is Del Curry, right?
But it's Wardell Stephen Curry.
Gotcha. Okay.
Dell's just short.
And so you're saying that Steph Curry is listed as
Wardell Stephen Curry the second.
Okay, that's a great question. I don't know. That would be Junior, right?
I believe Steph also named one of his kids at the same name as well.
Also the second. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Junior is used when a son has the same name as his father. The second is used when a child is named after a relative, which is not the father. So I don't know.
Are we looking too much into that now?
Oh, look at you. Do you happen to have the breaking news sounder? This just in, Eddie Garrison is a named conspiracy theorist. We've just learned that in the last few minutes. Indiana, Ohio State, Saturday, Lucas Oil Stadium, Buckeye side of things. My buddy Tim Mays covered the Bucks for over 40 years. Joins us next. When you start talking about Ohio sports and notably Columbus sports, one of the guys that is one of the real good guys in the paddock area when it comes to IndyCar racing, he has followed the Rahals forever and as a result is routinely around Indianapolis, but also all of the different spots that we have in IndyCar. But his primary gig for years with the Columbus Dispatch, he has been covering for over 42 years, Ohio sports, and notably the Ohio State football Buckeyes. He now has the Tim May Show on FanStreamSports.com, and he joins me now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line, Tim May from Columbus, Ohio. Tim, how are you?
Good, Jake. How you doing, man? I've always, whenever I have a question, I always call the Query Show.
That's exactly right. See, Tim, you are one of literally 18 people in the world that know that query means a question, and I could not be more thrilled for it, right?
And that just shows you what state the world is in as we speak, brother.
See, this is, for those that don't know, we've already gotten a glimpse of what conversations sound like in press rooms when Tim and I sit and solve the world's problems. All right, Tim, let's get to this. Ohio State and Indiana. Obviously, Ohio State is the pedigree program. Indiana is this incredible Cinderella story that is now no longer a Cinderella because they've gone past midnight. And
oh, yeah.
So I'm curious, if you really did have to, in transparency here, what is the Ohio State fan or just culture perception of Indiana? What is the thought here of, is how serious do they take Indiana?
1987, Earl Bruce got beat in Ohio Stadium. I think the score was, it was 31-10.
Wasn't it? Yep.
Yeah, and Earl Bruce, then the Ohio State football coach, called it the darkest day in Ohio State history. Not Ohio State football history, Ohio State history. And then the next year, Bill Mallory did it 2 years in a row, beat Ohio State and beat them thoroughly. I'm just throwing a little history out there. I think it was 41-7 or something remarkable. And my lead in the Columbus Dispatch on my story the next day was a new day has dawned in the Big Ten. And little did I know that'd be the last time Indiana would have beaten Ohio State until as we speak right now. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint what Ohio State perceives of Indiana, except I keep pointing out to people, Indiana under Curt Cignetti has now lost 2 games in 2 seasons, and the 2 losses were to the 2 teams that played for the national championship last year. They've gone undefeated in this. I mean, Indiana's never been at this level before in terms of winning on a consistent basis, much less going undefeated. So last year, oh my goodness, this year, oh, okay. Curt Cignetti et al. Know exactly what they're doing. And, I said back in the late spring, early summer, that in my opinion, Indiana was going to be better than it was last year because it had gotten some key portal transfer guys, not the least of which was Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback from California, because he was an upgrade. No offense to Mr. Rourke, but a definite upgrade there. And I think everybody's seen it now. He's, depending on where you look, he's a Heisman favorite, but one of the Heisman favorites along with Julian Sayin. So Saturday night has a lot hanging in the balance in Lucas Oil.
Do we know, let's talk about the quarterback matchup, Tim, because this is, I think you're right. I mean, I think the Heisman may come down to this game, right? Julian Sayin, let's start there. He is a younger player. He has had a phenomenal year. He has outstanding weapons around him. Do we know what kind of player he is when there is heat on him? Or have they adequately protected him so far this year? And can Indiana get to him?
Well, I mean, we'll have to wait and find out, Jake. I mean, I know that's a cop-out, but Ohio State, the offensive line, they announced the All Big Ten offensive award winners and teams, and Ohio State didn't have one member of its offensive line on the first team, on either first team. So I think there's a major oversight by those who voted on the awards. But the bottom line is we're going to have to find out. I mean, this offensive line is playing at a very high level. As the game went on Saturday in the Big House, they took more and more control of it. And It's kind of been fun to watch, as much like last year. Ohio State got beat by Michigan, and it was their second loss, and a lot of people gave up on the Ohio State football team, but they lost two major starters as the season went on last year. Their center and their left tackle, both of whom were drafted in the National Football League, and Josh Simmons is playing first-round draft pick in the National Football League. The left tackle they lost, but the bottom line is the offensive line in December through January, the 4 games they won to win the national championship, it was the best offensive line in the country. I don't think anybody would argue with that, with the way they took care of business throughout the playoffs. This offensive line replaced a couple starters, but has really grown into itself in the last couple of weeks. And, everybody was poo-pooing their schedule until they played Michigan, and then they took care of Michigan in a methodical fashion. So I think they feel pretty good about their ability to protect the quarterback. But I keep reminding people, Indiana didn't get here on a fluke, man. This is no lark. I mean, Indiana's gotten after people defensively as much as they have offensively. And but we'll see on Saturday night if Ohio State's offensive line is up to this test. I mean, it's a Indiana plays you pretty straight up, gets after you to a certain extent, but it'll be a man-to-man kind of battle there in the trenches.
What about on the other side of things, Tim? Tim May is my guest, Java House Peel and Port guest line. When you look at Mendoza and Indiana trying to keep him clean, this is an elite-level defense for Ohio State. For Ohio State in their defensive coverage, their strength starts where?
Starts right in the middle of the defensive line with Caden McDonald, who was named the Big Ten Defensive Lineman of the Year just yesterday. A guy who's really come into his own. I mean, the biggest question for us who cover Ohio State and really nationally, because you have to have some questions, right, about an elite program, was what they were going to do. They were replacing 8 starters on the defense, and all 4 of the defensive line starters were included in that. And how are they going to rise to that challenge? And they really got nobody from the interior for the interior defensive line. They got nobody in the transfer portal, so the depth was going to have to come from within. And one of the great things about covering Ohio State over the years is watching guys bubble up who wait their turn and bubble up. And we've seen that on the defensive front. Caden McDonald's a great example of that. But almost everybody who's playing this year played a lot last year, especially in that playoff run. But Caden McDonald, and now you've got Tywan Malone, who has come on. Edric Houston was a 5-star freshman a year ago. He kind of had a slow start to this year, helter-skelter start, but he's playing extremely well. I'm talking about the guys on the interior there. A guy named Will Smith Jr. I think everybody remembers Will Smith, the late great Will Smith, who was part of the 2002 Ohio State National Championship as a defensive end. I mean, his son and namesake is a tackle in the middle there who plays a pretty good bit recently. And then they got this guy. I don't know if people over in Indiana remember a guy named Caden Curry. Yeah. From right there in Center Grove, right down the street. He played in three straight Indiana high school state championship games there in Lucas Oil, and I think he won 2 of them. But he and Kenyatta Jackson waited their turn behind Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau, who returned last year because they wanted another crack at the brass ring. They got the national championship, but they didn't beat Michigan, and they didn't win. They didn't get to play for a Big Ten championship for the 4th straight year. Well, Caden Curry's really come on. He and Kenyatta Jackson, everybody watching on Saturday, number 97, Kenyatta Jackson just has really exploded over the last many weeks. And so they feel pretty good about that defensive front. So it starts there. And then you've got a guy like Caleb Downs, Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Back of the Year, who in essence is a quarterback at safety, but he can play in almost 7 positions. And it's not even really that. He has kind of his own special position wherever Matt Patricia puts him, or he decides to go on the defense. And, the transfer from Alabama from a year ago, who was part and parcel of the Ohio State defense a year ago. But the way he gets guys lined up, the way he messes with the quarterback's head before, during, and after a snap, things like that, that's what they have going for. I mean, they have the out linebacker of the year in Arvell Reese, who's really come on under the Matt Patricia system, and Sonny Styles, who is playing at a really high level, and Jalen McClain played decently in the national championship run at the other safety spot. But boy, did he have a game on Saturday at Michigan. And then their two cornerbacks played extensively last year. Jermaine Matthews is a first-time full-year starter, but he was on the goal line stand when they held Texas off last year when Jack Sawyer had the big return. And of course, Davis Onigbenosin, if he can just keep from grabbing people, he may be as good a corner as yours in the country. And I don't think this is hyperbole. Ohio State's got the number one defense in the country for a reason.
And, and what's fascinating about this matchup is right there, and I get it. I mean, I don't disagree with that, but and then you got Indiana. Statistically, the areas in which these two teams, these two programs are 1-2 or 2-1. I mean, it's remarkable. I think this is clearly, Tim, I do. I think this is clearly the two best teams in the country. The question is there a gap there? Now, let's get to the other side of this. I talked to Graham Rahal about this earlier this week. I want your perspective. Has Ohio State held close to the vest their cards offensively? Have we seen this offense of Ohio State play on all of the cylinders with which they're capable of playing?
Well, I think the big question about Ohio State, remember the St. Louis Rams, the best, the greatest show on turf?
Yep.
The big question was whether Ohio State could go on ice or snow or the four-wheel drive kind of approach, which is what they did last week offensively against Michigan. I mean, they had a 20-play, 12-minute drive in the middle of the second half that was pretty cool, except they didn't score a touchdown. They ended up kicking a field goal. So Ryan Day didn't give it an A++ on the drive, but as far as eating clock it was. But I think you've seen a lot of what Ohio State's capable of, but they've thrown things out there of which there are tangents where they can go from the four tight end look they give you down at the goal line. One of the tight ends ends up being a fullback in that a lot in an I formation, but they'll have four tight ends on the field, and you think you've seen all of those things, but you haven't. I mean, there are other ways they can go with that formation in terms of running and throwing the ball. That's just an example. But, you've seen Julian saying, Urban Meyer the other day, and he has no reason to really say this, but thinks he might be the most accurate quarterback in college football history. I mean, to watch this guy throw the ball, it's remarkable. And the wind and snow there was a decent breeze, let's put it that way, in Michigan Stadium last week, the big house. So they need to shut the windows, I guess. But the bottom line is he completed touchdown passes to all three of his starting wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate on that deep post. Of course, it broke Michigan's back, but also Brandon Ennis. They're kind of like forgotten about third wide receiver in that group. They've got all kinds of things they can go to from a throwing standpoint. Like you said, if they can protect, and Julian Sayin has shown the ability, to elude pressure and do it in sort of a smooth kind of way. And he has also shown the willingness and ability to run if he has to. When he came out of Carlsbad, California, 2 years ago and initially signed with Alabama, he was considered one of the elite dual threat quarterbacks in the country. People forget that. And his high school coach, I've had him on my Tim May show several times on the, like you said, FanStream Sports, just talking about him and how he's sort of underestimated. I mean, he's even underestimated how tall he is. People were thinking he was like Drew Brees height. I mean, he's like 6'1", legit 6'1", but he's just so smooth and sort of like unflappable, and also doesn't say a whole lot that you kind of go, how good is this guy? And he's completing 78% of his passes. That's pretty damn good. And he's only thrown 5 interceptions. One was last week against Michigan, and then he came back and cut Michigan's heart out, with some pretty good passing. So they feel pretty good about that. But it really helps that they've had a guy. I don't know if you remember this name, Jake, but a guy named Bo Jackson has emerged as the number one running back for Ohio State.
No relation to Bo, and no relation to Lamar Jackson, and that's his real name, right?
Yeah. Well, that's his nickname his dad gave him, Bo. I can't remember what his real name
It's
is.
Lamar.
Who cares?
I think his name's Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson.
Oh, yeah,
but he's not,
exactly.
Not related to.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's not
I'm
related
sorry.
to him either, right?
You were a step and a half ahead of me there, Jake. That's why you have this show. But no. And then another kid,
I got
West.
query and answers, Tim. I mean,
There
let's
you
be real
go,
here, right?
Yeah. Queries and quandaries. But also Isaiah West, both these guys are freshmen. I mean, true freshman running backs, and they've really come on of late. As I like to say, West likes to go north-south, and he's that kind of put the foot in the ground and go kind of guy. And Bo Jackson, same way. And then C.J. Donaldson, the guy they got from West Virginia, transfer running back because they just needed to kind of figure out a way to replace the power back that Quinshawn Judkins was a year ago. They thought they had the makings to replace Travion Henderson, which they have, but C.J. Donaldson comes in on really power situations and maybe pass pro situations, but Bo Jackson's gotten really good at pass pro too. So they feel really good about this offense, and that's not to mention, Will Kazmarek and Max Clare. Will Kazmarek transferred from Ohio University 2 years ago, or for the 2024 season. Max Clare, of course, transferred from Purdue this year at tight ends. Both of them had huge catches in that game at Michigan, for example, last week. And that's what sets good quarterbacks apart, man. They know where their tight ends are. And I've complimented Julian Sand on that to his face a couple of times because he just seems much older in terms of maturity than his years would indicate, being just a redshirt freshman.
Tim May, Ohio State, Indiana, Saturday night. Tim's got permanent residence in Indianapolis because he's always here covering the Speedway as well, and then Ohio State's always playing big games over here. Next time, Tim, when we have you on, study the roster a little bit, would you?
Yeah, I will do that, Jake. And by the way, I can't wait to get my gift certificate to St. Elmo's.
All right. We'll get you hooked up, man. We'll get you some of the shrimp cocktail. Tim May. By the way, the St. Elmo now, if just so you know, Tim, and for the rest of you, Tim knows this probably, but the shrimp cocktail, you don't have to go there. You can go to Harry and Izzy's right next door in case it's packed, because it will be for the Big Ten title game. I'm certain of that. But a good breakdown on Ohio State. Speaking of, by the way, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and football, both of them kind of crossing over for an event that's coming up in just a couple of weeks, and one of the guys that's putting that all on is going to join us in about 15 to talk about that. Eddie, are you go out and Christmas shop guy, or are you online only guy?
Mixture of both.
Well, you can't be a mixture of both if the second is only, right? So you're a mixture of online and out shopping. When do you begin your Christmas shopping?
I've already started.
How many people do you buy for? Mom, dad?
Mom, dad, brother, sister, and Olivia.
Okay. And then how many gifts per person?
It just varies.
Do you guys do like hey, here's my Christmas wish list type thing, or is it just?
Yeah, it's like, hey, do you have anything that you would want?
Yeah.
Yeah, here, there's stuff that I would like.
Okay, what about this? When it comes to the gift opening, so you guys all get together as a family on Christmas morning, right?
So, yes.
Do you open one at a time, or is it like, is everything... Like at our house, for example, all the gifts are under the tree, and then my oldest sister, Juge, is the one that usually, one by one, picks up a gift. Like, to Megan from Charlie, throws it over, Megan opens it, oh, okay, great, and then next one, and it, you do that until they're all gone. Do you guys do it that way, or do you walk in and all your gifts are right there and you just open them as you please?
Mom used to pass them out. She'd be like, okay, Eddie, you get this one. Mikey, you get this one. Alexis, you get this one. And then there was a system to it all.
Right, a system, yes, exactly. Yeah. Now, here's something that my family began doing. I mean, we did my entire childhood, and I think some families do similar. Do you open any gifts on Christmas Eve?
No.
Okay. We used to always do one gift on Christmas Eve, and it was always like pajamas or then as we got older, like stuff you would sleep in, like, sleeping shorts or whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big thing on Christmas Eve, then Christmas Day. But I just this week went out to go begin looking at stuff, because even though I do buy a lot of online, there's something about being out in the element, right? Hearing the music, seeing the crowd, it kind of gets you fired up, gets you ready for it. The hope is obviously always that everybody can enjoy special things during Christmas. And one guy who is a friend not just of this radio station, not just of myself, but of the city of Indianapolis, is making sure that everybody is able to enjoy exactly that. And he's doing it with a guy that is hoping to hear his name called in Canton. I'll explain all of it next. Just heard us talking about just Christmas traditions. One of the great things about, just the holiday season in general is for every family, I think everybody has their own little traditions that they do, or the things that make it special, or the people that are near you during the holidays. And the reality is, unfortunately, that not everybody is afforded those opportunities, but everybody certainly deserves it, and the opportunity to feel the love, if you will. And putting a smile on every child's face should be the goal of everybody within this town. Eddie, I think I've told you before, there are certain times, like when I was a kid, one of the traditions my family did is my parents, on Sunday nights, we'd go to Linder's, double dip for a dime time for ice cream, and we'd drive downtown, and I got to see kind of the building of downtown. I mean, the AUL built, now the One America building, the Salesforce Tower, the Dome. Each week when we would drive down, the buildings, to me as a kid, I'd look and they'd get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's similar to the Amp Harris Foundation and what he does for kids at the holiday season. Each year, seemingly, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But that's not to say that it doesn't come without the assistance of the community. So I wanted to have Amp Harris on to talk about exactly that. He joins now on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Amp, Merry Christmas to you, man. How are you?
Hey, Jake, I'm beautiful, man. Life is good. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you.
Let's talk about this, Amp. And I want to go, before we really get into the nuances of what it is that you're doing for kids, along with Reggie Wayne, who I know is, the closest of friends to you and to this city as well. But the motivation for this for you, I think for so many of us, anytime that you see a young person or a family that is in need, hopefully for anybody, your heart goes out to it. But I just think that your story is one that it is so much more personal than for most of us. If you could, Amp, take me through, and for those that are not familiar with it, why this time of year and helping out families is so important to you and your journey.
I think, as a child, man, I'm the youngest of 8. And, I used to wake up and, I've never, the wild thing is, I was never one of those kids who was over the top elated with Christmas. And I think a lot of it was looking at how much stress it was for my mother being a single parent, and how hard it was for her to try to provide. And I learned this, and I don't know how at such a young age, but as I got older, I started to see myself in so many young kids, particularly that look like me, and knowing what their mother or father may be going through. Some of them have the mother and father in the household, but unfortunately, they are struggling financially. So personally, as I got older and I started to have privilege, if I may, I always listened to my mother in the back of my mind, and she's always instilled in me, to whom much is given, much is required. And I've gotten an overabundance of life, when you talk about experiences, when you talk about material things. So as this person who has always been a giver, and that's due to my mother and the sacrifices that I watched her make. And at 13, Jake, it really resonated differently for me, because at 13, when you're a child and you're supposed to be, figuring out your life, and you're supposed to be out and having fun and doing certain things as a 13-year-old child, trauma hit my family different than a lot of other families, and particularly me. Because at 13, Jake, and I just started sharing this story more often, because I couldn't really talk about it, but over the last probably 2 to 3 years, doing self-reflection and working on my mental health, I understood where this person came from that you're describing. It came from a person who was 13 who watched his stepfather shoot his brother in the head. And at 13, I'm watching a .38 revolver within 2 feet take my brother's brain, and I'm sorry so graphic, but it's just part of who I am. And at 13, I'm watching the smoke and I'm watching my brother lay up against the wall. But at the same time, I'm standing there watching my mother watch her son's life be taken away, watch her husband's life be taken away, and then watch her youngest son, who is me, life potentially be taken away. But through the grace of prayer, and I grew up in a praying home, I tell people all the time, my mother, and I know a lot of very strong, physically fit men and women, but my mother is the strongest person that I know ever in the world in my lifetime, because for her to endure that and still stay steadfast in her belief. And now I understand more and more who I became because of her. That's what you see in the philanthropic side of me. A lot of people get caught up, Jake, in Amp Harris. Yeah, he knows Kevin Hart, or he knows Mike Epps, he knows LeBron James, he knows Michael Jordan, he knows Reggie Wayne, Peyton Manning, Jim Mercer, he knows all these people. But they really have no idea who Amp is. And those people don't know why Amp is the way that he is. And Jake, you and I have known each other for a long, long time. And there's a great admiration because we both actually have that in common, where we think about other people before ourselves. So that's the bigger picture of why I do what I do and where it comes from.
With that, Amp, and I know that you've partnered with, and we'll get everybody the information about how they can help December the 20th at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for kids. And I love the fact that you bring in, for a lot of kids, it might be the first time that they're introduced to the Speedway, one of the iconic sports venues, or, for that matter, Reggie Wayne, and the things that you do. And I know that we're going to find ways for people to be able to help out with that. But I'm curious of this, of the athletes that you've known in town. One of the things that I remember the most about Reggie Wayne's career was, and I don't remember at what point in his career it was, Amp, but the Colts were playing, I believe it was in New York against the Jets, and there was question about whether or not Reggie Wayne would play because his brother was tragically involved in a fatal accident, a car accident, as a delivery guy in New Orleans, like earlier in that week or the week before. And after the game, I remember going in and interviewing Reggie Wayne, and I could see the hurt on his face about the loss for his family, but at the same time, the obligation that he felt to be able to be there for the family that he had within that locker room. Does the common ground of family loss and struggle, is that part of what bonds you with Reggie Wayne?
Yes and no. I mean, I'm older than Reggie, and I have that same commonality with Edgerrin James also, because Edgerrin James lost the mother of his kids when he was playing in the NFL. And he became a single parent also, and I was there through that. The thing with me, Jake, I arrived at that space of maturity much faster than they probably did. Because at the end of it, when you're a professional athlete, I empathize with those guys because I've been there. So when you're a professional athlete, and this is where a lot of people don't understand how emotional these guys, their mental is as a professional athlete, and then still, like to the point you're talking about with Reggie, that particular day, it's almost the same type of scenario, literally with Edgerrin. And I know several athletes that have Gary Brackett, same thing, with his parents. So there is a commonality, but if you can look at the person beyond the football player, then you are able to have that connection without even talking about it. Because this is not something, Jake, that we all talk about. Of course, in time, and Reggie's brother just had his birthday a couple weeks ago. So he was in a very dark space while he was coaching again. A lot of people, they didn't know that. But they don't see the humanistic side of who these athletes are. So I was just fortunate to become really good friends, business partners with these guys, but also became like a big brother mentor to them to balance out the fakeness of football and the perceptions of what people thought they were beyond a human being.
Amp, what year did you first begin doing, and I know you've done, in various capacities, toy drives or things for the holidays. What year did it really start to kind of take off to the point that, that now obviously you've got a team of people? I mean, Reggie and, our mutual friend Greg Simmons, who's a great guy that, is always helping out and getting involved. But when did this really start to take off to the point of what we now know it as part of the Amp Harris Foundation?
I would say on a larger scale, because honestly, Edrin was with me when I first started this back in like 2004. And I started it with my attorney, Nathaniel Lee, at the time. But then that was just adopting, families from within his client base, my attorney's client base. But at the same time, there was a message in it for me, which is something that people don't understand. I'm taking these young athletes and I'm teaching them that there is another life greater than just being a professional athlete and a celebrity. And they see through me, because I don't waver, and you know this, Jake. Like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm doing it with or without them. But as time went on, I would say probably 2012, I woke up one day and said, I want to adopt 300 kids. And when I do this, Jake, I don't rely. A lot of people think that my professional athlete friends give me money. I've never asked Reggie Wayne to give me money to do any event. I've never asked Edrin James to give me money to do any event, because I also know that everybody doesn't have service as part of their DNA. And that's not a bad thing. That's the reality of it. That's not a bad thing. But if you show people that there's much more to their name than just the money aspect of it, which is why I think my relationships are so strong with a lot of these guys, because it's not built around me utilizing their name for glorification to say that I'm somebody because I stand next to this person. No, when I say Reggie Wayne's name, it's going to be something impactful. And the same thing with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is why I'm there. Like, I am going to always protect the image of my friends. I'm always going to protect the brand of these guys. So 2012, 2014, I just took this on my own. And then I brought in, at the time, Robert Mathis. And then I had Shaq Leonard, Darius Leonard, his rookie year when he first came. He was a part of it. And T.Y. Hilton became a part of it. Miles Turner became a part of it. So I grabbed these guys at a young age, but they see the image of Amp and what he does. So eventually you're like, whoa, I love this. Last year, A.D. Mitchell was out there with Reggie and I. Because, Reggie, we got to show these young kids early. They got to see what you do and why your name is so big in this city. And we need them, because it's not just about their money, Jake. It's about young kids coming from these inner cities that watch these celebrities but think these celebrities' life is just that, what they see them in a fancy car, big house, jewelry, and all of that. No. These athletes come from broken homes just like the ones you and I come from. So that's the most important message with the athletes, is their image there means more to me than their money.
1,000 kids for Christmas, by the way, adopted. The families have been pre-selected. The Amp Harris Reggie Wayne Put a Smile on a Child's Face for Christmas. Distribution will be December 20th. That is Saturday at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. A Saturday, I should say, 2 weeks from this Saturday. Amp, in terms of donations for whether it be toys or monetary donation, I know the ampharrisfoundation.org, and it is right there where people can make a monetary donation or help out. In terms of the toys themselves, are you still accepting donations for the toys?
Yes, we do that. The only thing that we ask is, because we don't have like a hub where they can drop them off. That's the only downside to it. So what I try to do is, the easiest thing is, if someone reaches out to me via social media, which is AMP, AMPHARRIS, at all social media platforms, they can DM me, and then we can figure out a way to make that happen. Like, I love to work with companies that would be willing to say, hey, you can use our store. Then I would do something like that. But right now, Jake, I don't have a drop-off place. That's what I mean. Like, I literally do this grassroots because it's from my heart. But by the time the event takes place, they don't know we've been at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for 2 weeks, Jake. We start on December the 10th, and we're there every day like a job. Volunteers come in, they help us, and then I actually go shopping for the toys myself. You know, we spend like 3 or 4 days in various stores throughout the city, and the age group ranges from 0 to 10. But, you know, this is, I come on, and I thank Radio 1 because they're a huge partner. Jake, you're a big advocate of mine, and we've been friends for a long time. So I would be remiss if I didn't shout you guys out for allowing me to get this word out, because it's not just about me. It's not just about Reggie. It's literally to get people to understand humility still exists. Humanity still exists. And if you can bless one child this Christmas, do that. It could be like when I grew up, a pair of socks and some paper meant a lot to me just to be able to open something.
Well, I think,
and we take for granted.
I think an important, and I've seen this myself, okay, and I know that, you know, you want to be able to reach and save every kid, right? And then you kind of come to the reality of, or the understanding or the hope of, to me, when I see things like this, I just want each kid in this city that I love to feel like there is a city that loves them back. And I think it's so important for, you know, I've always said, like, the true measure of the character of a city is not how it treats its upper echelon, but rather how it treats its totality. And I think it's so important for these kids to see people that are involved in this community, representing the community, to know that they are a part of it and that they matter too, and that they are not overlooked, and that therefore they are a part of this community, and that community is there for them. And even if maybe if that comes in just a wrapped pair of socks, it's the symbolism of it. And to me, Amp, that's what I think you should be thanked for, is the fact that all of these kids get the opportunity to realize that there is still good out there.
And that's the truth. I mean, when you think about, you know, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the Indianapolis Coach, the Indiana Pacers, Indiana Black Expo, there are so many different organizations that come alongside of me. You know, we don't just do toys, Jake. The toy giveaway, like I live my life like this: topic versus issues, happiness versus joy, content versus intent. And a lot of people live their lives, and it's unfortunate that the world we live in is based on topics, happiness, content, and images. That's what drives our world. And I'm trying to combat that, which is, you know, it's tough. You know as well as I do, because you do your community service. It's tough when you're trying to show that positive side, but I'm steadfast at it. So I don't take for granted that we get to expose people that would not get a chance to just the Speedway as a whole. When I got with Mark Miles and Allison Millington and Doug Bowles, they didn't really understand, because I was doing this before, and I pivoted to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway because of COVID, because it used to be on the inside, and it was a whole event with dinner, concert, and everything that I was doing. But that's how I ended up at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But the first year I was there, they couldn't understand the vision of it because it's so unique within itself. But now they are like, hey, what day are you coming back? Because they see the impact of those families, Jake, grandmothers pulling up in cars with their grandbabies, you know, grandparents, adults literally in tears. And it's not like we're giving them cars or iPhones, but they're in tears because, to your point, they see, and it could be 20 degrees outside. If the day was December the 20th, whatever the temperature is, we're outside, standing outside, serving these families. So you're spot on when you talk about the image, because that's what it's really all about. We have to figure out a way in this city to combat all of the negativity. And it takes a Amp Harris, it takes a Reggie Wayne, it takes a Jay Query. It takes a village of us. And we can't get everybody, but the ones that we can do, and that's why I took a large number of adopting 1,000 kids. And this year, the need is so much greater. I'm up to 1,200 kids, Jake. So I am really like pushing the envelope, but I know in the end, it's going to be worth it. So that's the most important thing for me.
Amp, what was your brother's name?
Roger Harris.
Roger Harris. So Roger Harris, Rashad Anthony Wayne, in tribute to them, in memory to them, and two brothers that are very proud of the work that is being done by their brothers to this day, helping out Amp Harris Foundation, helping out now 1,200 kids in central Indiana. Amp, we'll have you on again before the 20th, man, but I most appreciate it on behalf of this city, and certainly, again, Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Love you, bro. You know that.
Appreciate it, Amp, and that is absolutely reciprocated. Amp Harris joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. You heard him mention Reggie Wayne. You heard him talk about A.D. Mitchell, who is now obviously off to a good start in his time in New York, and Reggie Wayne, his wide receiver coach. But they have a task at hand. Do Reggie Wayne and the Colts with Jacksonville. The voice of the Colts, Matt Taylor, joins us other side to preview and discuss who's in and who might be out for that game next. Matt Taylor is the voice of the Colts, joins us Java House Peel and Pour guest line, courtesy of Shelby Materials. Matt, you just heard yourself reading about that. I guess the difference between you and new hires at Shelby Materials, you do not get every other weekend off, correct?
Not this time of year, my friend. No, we are grinding, and I need all the coffee I can get.
Listen, we'll get you some Java House. Eddie, would you like to send him over some of your black mango tea, or are you going with the Colombian that you'll send him out?
I don't have any black mango tea, Jake. You only gave me one, and I don't want to steal any more from your stash. So
okay, well, I'll see what I can't do to hook you up. Matt, let's begin with this from a health standpoint. In practice today, some of those that we've been looking upon on the injury report, where do things stand? What's the latest on this Thursday?
Yeah, I think, knock on wood, I think guys are in pretty good shape. I mean, obviously the biggest one is going to be that fibula, I should say, of Daniel Jones. And, I think Shane Steichen, Daniel Jones himself yesterday, both guys still pretty emphatic that he's good to go. Very little, if any, limitations to his ability to play with it. And so, I mean, we heard all about the special pad and, the special mechanism for him to be able to negotiate physically playing with that injury. So I think, knock on wood, this is a pretty healthy team going into a very pivotal game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, you can't say the same thing, at least not as of right now, about Jacksonville. They got some key players who may not be available for them on Sunday. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But the big ones you're keeping an eye on, Trayvon Walker on the outside, one of their better pass rushers, Parker Washington, who's their leading receiver, both in catches and receiving yards. He's also a really dangerous return man. He's got 2 punt returns for touchdowns already this season. They did some shuffling along their offensive line because of injuries. Robert Hainsey has been banged up a little bit. Patrick McCary has been dealing with a concussion the last couple of weeks. Looks like he's on track to play, but I think more uncertainty certainly on the side of the Jaguars ledger than the Colts going into a big game for both teams.
The Jaguars are really intriguing to me, Matt, before we get back into the Colts stuff, because and maybe maybe I'm just ignorant here or guilty as charged on that, but it's not a team that I had focused a lot on in terms of what they were doing to this point, because I just kind of assumed that they would be stuck right there around 500. And then all of a sudden you kind of look over your shoulder and you go, Trevor Lawrence has had a couple of decent games here and they've got a decent defense, and wow, they're right here in the thick of it. And Houston's not just the only one to worry about. What jumps out at you as you've kind of studied Jacksonville about what they're doing that's working?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. They are a very mysterious team because, big picture going into this game, you've got 2 8-4 teams, but you have 2 different types of 8-4, if you will. You've got a surging 8-4 in the Jaguars, who started the year 4-1, hit some speed bumps in the middle of the season. They've won 3 in a row. And then you have like a declining 8-4 in the Colts. Obviously, everybody knows what I mean by that, right? They started 7-1, lost back-to-back games. Now they've lost 3 of their last 4. But I think you're so spot on to talk about this with Jacksonville, because they are a very mysterious team. And, you hear all this, you hear this said all the time. It sounds cliche because it is, but it's also very true. In the NFL, a lot of teams go as their starting quarterback goes. Well, if that was the case for the Jacksonville Jaguars, they should be 4-8, not 8-4, based on the season Trevor Lawrence is having, because he leads the NFL in turnovers with 14. He ranks second in interceptions with 11. He's got the 4th worst passer rating in the NFL so far this year, right around 86. In fact, he only has, last Sunday was his first game all year with a passer rating over 100, and that was against a very terrible Titans team. And just look at that game on its own last week against Tennessee. I know Tennessee's not very good, but they won the game by like 25 points. But if you look at the box score and watch the game, Jacksonville in that game had 7 punts, and they went 3 and out 5 times. And then another thing that's really weird about their team is that they are 26th in the NFL in third down offense, third down conversion rate, but they're 8th in time of possession. Like, I don't know how those 2 things can exist at the same time. How can you hang on to the ball for that long but be that bad on third down? But they're really extreme in a lot of different areas. They're really good at taking the football away on defense. They are really good at stopping the run on defense. In fact, they're number one in rushing defense, giving up only about 82 yards a game, which is really concerning for the Colts as they try to kickstart that offense again on the ground with Jonathan Taylor. So that's kind of the long and short of it with Jacksonville. They're a good team, but they don't blow you away in a lot of different important categories, but they're just really good at a few different things that, that's kind of carrying their water, if you will, to an 8-4 start and a three-game winning streak here.
Matt, in talking about Matt Taylor is our guest, the voice of the Colts, obviously. He is on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. Matt, when you talk about Daniel Jones and the injury, and we've talked plenty about this, knock on wood, by all account, it would appear as though the injury is not going to worsen from an injury standpoint, but the pain is something that may be the challenge for Daniel Jones. Has he offered any indication as to whether or not that pain, say, worsened over the course of a game, or what they can do to manage that to maybe increase his mobility?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, obviously, when Shane Steichen and or Daniel Jones are asked about this, they keep it vague, and they're not disrespectful, but they keep it pretty, pretty tight to the vest, if you will, pretty buttoned up when it comes to the information they're giving out about this injury. So from that standpoint, it's a great question. I just don't know that we're going to know the answer to it, maybe ever, or, I think at the earliest end of the season, or maybe when guys come back for the spring next year and OTAs, maybe you'll get some glimpses of what was actually going on this time of year. But I just think out of a competitive advantage standpoint, the Colts aren't going to give you a whole lot. But I think it is fair to say that Daniel Jones is dealing with something, right? Because he's on the injury report. There are reports out there. And again, there's been a special pad made for him. I think the biggest thing that you're seeing in terms of the overall, for lack of a better term, like the ramifications of the injury so far is just they don't call a ton of design and direct runs for him. They really haven't been doing that at all so far this season. But, I go back 3 weeks ago before the bye in Berlin. He had 5 quarterback scrambles in that game for about 50 yards. And that and his play and that part of his game was a huge reason why they won that game. You go back to 3rd and 21 late in the game, and he scrambles out of the pocket for 19 yards to put the Colts in a very favorable 4th and 2, which they go on to convert, and then they go on to win the game in overtime. But in the last 2 games, he only has 2 quarterback scrambles, and if I'm right about this, I think he only has 1 design rollout, and that was kind of a miniature rollout where he hit Tyler Warren on the touchdown in the 3rd quarter, or early 4th quarter, I should say, against Houston the other day. So, also too, you had Tyler Warren motion in the backfield and dip under center and try to run a quarterback sneak. Daniel Jones is normally that guy for the Colts. He's been really successful in doing that this year. I think he's 11 for 12 on quarterback sneaks, converting on 3rd and short or 4th and short. So I think that's the biggest component that we're going to have to keep an eye on for the Colts in this offense is Daniel Jones is, the football in his hands, either under center on quarterback sneaks or design boots or scrambles, because I think, that's the part of the offense where I think he can be most effective running the football when he's fully healthy. But obviously, with that fibula injury, it might be hindering his ability to do that, and maybe Shane Steichen's willingness to call plays where he's outside of the pocket.
Matt, when you were a student, what was your best subject, whether it be Franklin, Roncalli? What was your best subject in school was what?
Well, I don't know if it was my best subject, but the subject that I was probably most interested in was algebra. Like solving equations.
You are the only person in the history of radio that has given that answer.
I don't know. There's something about algebra that
okay.
Sort of. I don't want to say it came easy, but I didn't mind doing it.
Okay, perfect entry into this. Okay, because algebra, I basically got nothing but Fs. Okay, so I'm going to present to you a theory, and then I want you to grade me A to F and tell me whether or not I'm reverting back to my days of algebra or if it's more so like English where I got A's, okay?
I love it.
I mentioned this earlier. I thought one of the overlooked aspects of what took place on Sunday was not even the fact that we know Daniel Jones and the injury and the challenges that created for his mobility. But one of the aspects of that further complicated it was the fact that Tyler Warren was coming off of illness and theoretically, or one would assume, was not necessarily 100%. And while he was utilized on some plays, the overall nature of having him as that safety net that you could drop off to and turn a 2-yard play into an 8-yard play after contact, etc., was kind of nullified or taken away, and that made it even that much more challenging for Daniel Jones because he didn't have kind of his safety net bailout option there. Your grade?
I give it a B-.
Okay.
Because and the reason why is I think I agree with you more than I disagree with you on it because, you're right. I mean, Tyler Warren wasn't 100%. There was one play where I thought, there's a million plays throughout the course of a game, right? And who knows? I think it's probably only fair for him to really answer it. But just speculating, there was one play where I thought I really noticed it where it was kind of I forget what stage of the game it is. It was in the middle of the game, either late second quarter, early third quarter, but they hit Tyler Warren on a quick out. And he got about 3 yards on the play, and he was quickly tackled, I think, by middle linebacker for Houston, Azeez Alshire. And it was a play where I just thought like a fully healthy, non-illness Tyler Warren is able to kind of get out of that tackle and or, get upfield quicker than he actually did with the ball in his hands. He had a 3-yard gain. And a fully healthy Tyler Warren on that play, I think, picks up like 8 yards and helps the Colts in terms of, better down and distance and stay on schedule a little bit better. And also, too, case in point, he had a season low and thus career low because he's a rookie, 22 yards in that game. And I just didn't feel like he was the same Tyler Warren. And whether that's a fair observation or not, or maybe that's reading into it a little bit too much. But, I did notice, for the most part, the same thing about Warren. He just looked a little bit, I don't know, like half step slower or whatever. But, I think hopefully with another week of recovery, he's able to come back and play at a higher rate, fuller speed, and hopefully he's fully healthy.
That sounds like an A to me. You're a tough grader.
Well, like I said, I mean, we're speculating on that. So I'm kind of like that's like a Scantron, like half the Scantron was ripped off.
So hold on. So the theory gets a better grade than the actual proof of the theory, right?
That's fair. That's fair. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Good hypothesis by you.
That's right. Right. We had the control. We had the hypothesis. We just don't have the proof at this point that we need.
Well, there's too many variables right there, right? Wasn't that a good science word? Like too many variables to prove
that is
100%
correct.
Your hypothesis.
By the way, speaking of proof, I have to tell this story every time the Colts are getting ready to go to Jacksonville. But one of the years that I was covering Colts and Jags, my buddy that lived in Jacksonville took myself and a couple of members of the local media out for cocktails the night before at a place called Locals. That was the name of the bar. And he knew the manager, and so therefore he's like, by the way, guys, there is no tab here. Everything's on the house. And I abstained. I had a couple of Diet Cokes. Rich and I went ahead and played it the safe route. But there is one member of the local media that Matt, I will never say his name, that went like 100 proof throughout the course of the day and then puked on the field the next day. Puked on the field during the game.
Damn.
Yeah.
Man, I remember my first road trip to Jacksonville. What the hell?
I mean,
now do I get hints? Do I get a year? Do I get a time period? Or is he still going? What are we doing here?
No longer in the business. Not because of that. A super good dude, man. I mean, great dude. And this was out of character. It wasn't like it was just one of those deals where it just, the sun and the night before caught up to him. And and actually, I think the Colts puked on the field that game too, down in Jacksonville, which they've done many a time. You worked with them. I will say that. You worked with them for a brief period of time.
No, well, I'm gonna hang up here and go through the Rolodex and go through the recesses of my brain to see who had a tough go of it in Jacksonville. But listen, I guess we've all been there, right?
I will say, okay, last thing I will say, and I say this only for the sake of so the audience doesn't feel left out here. It is not somebody that the general audience would know, so it was not an on-air personality.
Okay.
But
all
you
right.
can text me your guesses. But it is, I'll tell you, that's been a house of horrors. Jacksonville, obviously, it's going to be a big one on Sunday and a big one for the Colts, and we'll see, and of course, hear what happens, Matt, as we will be listening to the game. Safe travels, obviously, all right?
All right, I appreciate you, Jake, man. I'll talk to you next week.
Pace yourself on the night before. Matt Taylor joining us on the Java House Peel and Pour guest line. We'll come back. We'll do the crossover with J&V, see what he's got lined up. We'll do it next. Loaded show today. Thank you, Eddie, for lining everybody up.
Hey, no problem.
Rhett Lewis, Tim May, Matt Taylor, Amp Harris was on the program, Tony East. Kind of covered everything. Tomorrow will be a lot of talk about the Big Ten Championship game and then continuing to talk Colts-Jags. We'll go down to Jacksonville for that conversation. If you are in Columbus, Ohio, as Tim May was when we had him on, then you would be familiar with the fact that in Columbus, JMV means JMV Cleaning Services of Columbus, Ohio, a reliable cleaning company based in Columbus, Ohio, dedicated to proving top-notch residential and commercial cleaning solutions. JMV is clean. He is down in Columbus, Indiana, actually, for his remote for the day. Joining us now as part of the crossover brought to you by Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com, 317-353-2141, the telephone number. John, you're going south this time, right?
I love it down here. Jake, when's the last time you've been to Columbus, honestly? You and Tony Stewart come down here and hang out back in the day?
Yeah, I was going to look at the property and make an offer. I used to, the last time I was in Columbus and actually stopped in Columbus, if this gives you an idea, I used to love to go to that old Holodome that had like the 1920s feel that was right off of 65, but that's been a while.
Oh, I love a Holodome. I was always the Jasper, Indiana Holodome. I tore that place up. AstroTurf, pinball machines, video. You ever get out of the pool and you're wet and you go over and play Asteroids and try not to shock yourself, but you're still wet?
And then like some putt-putt golf, like a 5-hole putt-putt golf on the AstroTurf. Yeah, it was great. Water slides, the whole deal.
Downtown Columbus is awesome. Obviously, the worldwide home of Cummins, too. So my invitation is out to the folks just down the street here at Cummins to join us. But no, it is an absolute pleasure to be here. Robin and the Garage, and we're downtown Columbus making our Week 14 selections. I know that Brown County Music Center, our good friend Christian Webb is going to join. Matt Goins, the AAA Prez, is going to join. And I think Spencer Thompson Friends. We got a lot of friends joining us that we never get down here enough, right? We're all consistently in and around Indy. So we get down here, and a lot of friends that rarely join us are going to join us for the first time in a while, which is pretty sweet.
I just saw, John, the field. Somebody sent us a picture of it, of Lucas Oil Stadium with Indiana and Ohio State already in the end zones. It still feels surreal, does it not, to think of that matchup?
It does. I know, it's like, did somebody make a mistake on this here?
Totally.
It's weird, man.
Totally.
It is. I mean, and just how recently we felt that way. I mean, hell, it wasn't 2 years ago. Can you imagine before COVID? We think COVID turned everything around and turned it upside down. I mean, this is one of the good things between this and, me being able to do Fox 59 in my underwear in my living room. Those are two really good things that happened after COVID.
That's right, yeah. Well, the latter in particular, I guess, right, depending on who you are.
Yes,
all right, John, so we'll throw it out to you in just a couple minutes, and you will give me the name of the location again down in Columbus where we'll find you.
It is the Garage. We are downtown Columbus, Indiana, and Robin is the owner. They got all TVs, great food. We've got cocktails that are going to be flowing as well with Heaven Hill Distillery here in Brent Holverson. Downtown Columbus, we're at the Garage, so come and join us. Hopefully we see everybody down here in Bart County, the heart of Bart County, Bartholomew County.
All right, John, we will throw it out to you in just a couple of minutes.
Got it, pal.
JMV will be with you, carrying you home for the rest of the day. We'll be back with you at noon tomorrow. Todd Blackledge joins us on the program tomorrow. Chris Ditto as well. JP Shadrick will go down to Jacksonville and preview Colts and Jags, and look forward to it. I certainly hope all of you stay warm. Enjoy John's program, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Thank you for listening to Query & Company.